Alright, it's been a while since I've done a Tropico video, but the last couple that I did had pretty good reception, so I figured I'd make another and see if I can be of help to anyone else. So today we're going to be looking at wonders. Now originally I wanted to make a tier list. I started one up, I started putting things in there until I realized that there's too much going on to make a proper tier list. There's not necessarily good or bad wonders. Now I've made 5 categories here. The first one is military. These will be wonders that will boost your military directly or indirectly. And I know a guy who is off the chain with his military. He's straight up shooting people in the streets, murdering any political dissidents. He is, shooting people left and right. And so if that's your thing and you just enjoy the chaos and you just want your loyal followers, these wonders are gonna help you out a lot. The second category that I made here are economic wonders. Those are pretty straight up front, and that it's the end goal to these wonders is just to generate as much money as possible. So these will probably be the more popular with a lot of people. The third category I made here are political wonders. And I made this category with the thought process of maintaining power for as much time as possible with needing minimal interaction. I myself in multiplayer games like to just go off. I'll go off for like 30 minutes. I might even go off for an hour. And I'll come back to a nice big pile of money. And I'll still be in power, right? Because I focused on maintaining power without me having to be there. You always got to watch out for those elections, because it would suck to lose if you miss it. The fourth category I made here is tourism. For those who like to have not necessarily the largest population, but to have a good tourist rating and have them take care of most of your expenses and your profit. It's a pretty neat way to play. Not a lot of people do it, and I would consider it to be one of the harder ways to get through the game, but it is very rewarding. And the last category I made here is going to be efficiency, with the mindset of using the least amount of building space to get done what you need to get done. And maps like Tropico 6, where there's not exactly the most building space, especially in multiplayer, it can be quite helpful. I am going to go through these one by one, and then at the end of the video I'll show you what the tier list looks like. So let's go on and begin with the Brandenburg Gate. These 4 wonders right here, you will need your Pirate Cove, and each of them represents a different strategy in my mind. The Brandenburg Gate here I would put under the political category. The further you go into the game, the more useful this becomes, so I think it starts out pretty okay, and then as you go through the game it becomes very, very useful if you just want to walk away from the keyboard. What this does is prevent extremists from appearing in your empire, and the die-hard political views you would find down here in your book. Go to one of your factions, click on them, and here you have your diehards. These are the people that are going to be giving you an absolute nightmare, protesting in the streets, you know, setting your buildings on fire. These are problem people if they oppose you. Now if they support you, they're alright, but if you get on these guys' bad side, no good. So Brandenburg Gate, political. Next up on the list we have the Hagia Sophia. This one is very clearly an efficiency wonder. I personally am not a fan, but I have seen it used well. Essentially, you can play the game completely without hospitals or clinics or anything. That doesn't mean people won't hate you, but think of all the expenses you cut out, and as long as you have a good rein on your political stance, you found some gimmick. There are a couple gimmicks that you can use to keep your people happy regardless of their healthcare. This can not only be efficient, it could even be economically beneficial. So this, I would categorize, I should make a 6th category for gimmicks, but I will put this one in efficiency because that's what it does best regardless of the gimmick. So Hagia Sophia, efficiency. Third up on the list for the Pirate Cove, and Lord help me if I butcher this name, I have no idea how to say this. Registan of Samarkand? I don't know. I would probably put this in a subcategory as well for efficiency. You're still going to need high schools if you pick this, but you will need less high schools. All children automatically gain a high school education. That is good, but your entire population is not necessarily homegrown, you have a lot of immigrants, so skipping out on high schools is not something you necessarily want to do. So while I would put this in a subcategory in efficiency, I believe its main category would be military. And you look at that and you think, oh, why is that the military wonder for the Pirate Cove Age? And I'll show you. The answer is here in your constitution. Soldiers are required to have at least a high school education. Damage of squads is increased by 10%. Military standing is increased by 10. The military faction is the easiest faction to please of all the factions I have found. They're generally pretty easy to keep happy. And the militia is okay. You know, barracks producing an extra squad each, right? However, your military's faction is likely to be small because of how many purgings you'll have to do, right? If you're going to be focusing on the military route. And so every man counts. Let me tell you from personal experience, professional soldiers get the job done. And there is simply no comparison for that extra 10 military standing. So Registan of Samarkand military. The fourth and final wonder of the Pirate Cove is Stonehenge. Hands down, without a question, best economic wonder here. The others can help you a little bit in that regard to saving you cash, but the Stonehenge is uncontested. It makes you so much money. If you build a bunch of lumber mills around this, and you build ships with this, you're going to be overflowing in so much cash you don't know what to do with. I've seen it, I've done it. I would almost consider it overpowered. I'm sure somebody can come up with something that makes more money than the Stonehenge, right? There are other min-maxers out there. I have confidence they can do better. But for your average Joe, this is going to be game-changing. You can use Stonehenge as a crutch and do extremely well. It reduces pollution as well, but the key feature here is lumber mills for building ships. So Stonehenge economy. Next up is the Commando Garrison, and here we have our 4 Commando Garrison wonders. Alright, God save the Queen. I'm going to try and pronounce this one. Ahu Akivi Moe. No idea if that's right, but I don't see a category I could put this in aside from tourism. With your boats and ships getting here faster, I could see you getting tourists a lot quicker, which is what you want. You want to get your tourists in and out, and as many as you can. The extra ship speed is nice, but it is what it is. Ahu Akivi Moe. Tourism. And actually, on the topic of tourism, I'm not 100% certain that pollution affects tourists, but if it does, that should be something to consider with Stonehenge as well. Next up, we have the Eiffel Tower. This is one of my favorites, actually. Now, as a subcategory, I would put this in political, because you can quickly spread your political propaganda, but you can do that anyways, right? You don't need the Eiffel Tower for that. And because of that reason and that reason only, I will put its primary category in efficiency, because it saves you the trouble of having to build radios and radio towers and TV stations all across your empire. You save a little bit of money in that. I mean, this thing is... It does a little bit of everything. It's kind of economic too. It's really, really good, but above all else, it is efficient in the amount of space that it will save you. One thing to note that I will stick as a footnote here is that you do need at least the first building for each type. So if you're trying to turn people into militarists, you at least need 1 radio station throwing out propaganda for that, and then that's it. You don't have to build another radio tower next to somebody spreading that particular, but you do need 1 of each. So Eiffel Tower, efficiency, and everything else. Here's another one I can butcher. Ikebana Castle. Did I say it right? I don't know. This one is mandatory if you're doing a military playthrough. There's basically nothing else to say about that. If you're going military, this is the centerpiece to your empire. So Ikebana Castle, military. And the last building of the Commando Garrison. One I can pronounce. The Taj Mahal. This is your king of economy wonder right here. This is a really important age for when you're trying to get your entire empire established for the long term. The better you end up doing in-game, the more this pays off, because it scales with how many rich citizens you have. So this one pretty much snowballs out of control. Taj Mahal, economic, no question. Next up, we're going to have our Spy Academy, and these are our 4 Spy Academy wonders. Starting with the Statue of Liberty, when looked at first glance, looks like it may help you out for tourism. But in fact, this is immigrants, not tourists, that arrive on your island 100% happy, so it's not going to really help you out for that much at all, except for the fact that all of these wonders passively increase your tourist ratings. The Statue of Liberty is a political stunt, and thus it falls into the political category, because the percentage of your population that are immigrants that you can control from your embassy, which is very, very helpful if you increase how many foreigners are coming into your empire. Because if you make that number high and you pick the Statue of Liberty, you're going to have a large population that's keeping you in power. It's pretty neat. So Statue of Liberty, political. Next up is the Great Sphinx. Don't even ask me what this does. Nobody knows, and if they do know, you're not supposed to know. So it is what it is. It could give you good fortune on the weather, could make your crops grow better, could make you more attractive. Yeah, who knows? And that's what makes it fun. In fact, because I don't have a category to put this in, the only thing that I can put it in is tourism, simply by the fact that that's the only thing that we know that it does, is increase your tourist ratings when they visit it. So that is the incorrect category, but the one that we have to put it in, since we don't have any other information, or at least I don't. Next up is the Colosseum of Rome. This is another one of my personal favorites, and also a gimmick. So if you're going into this, you're probably going all the way into it. Kind of like if somebody stabs you in the back with a sword, and you pull them in closer to stab them with the sword too. This is a wonder where you're probably already going for food and fun happiness. In a way, you could put this in a subcategory as efficiency, since you'll need less places to make people happy. In a way, you could put this in a subcategory of economic, because you're not spending money on those buildings. But for me, this is a political wonder. And the reason for that is that's what it does best, is it keeps people happy. And when people are happy, they keep voting for you. You would want to be building primarily gourmet restaurants to keep your people at their utmost happiness. Some things that you will want for your Colosseum is food for the people. This is pretty much mandatory if you want to get your happiness levels up really high. So Colosseum of Rome, political. Although I also strongly advise this one in the direction of efficiency as well, because it does save you a lot of building space. Finally, the last one on here is St. Basils Cathedral. This is another gimmick. In fact, I would categorize it almost precisely like I did the Colosseum of Rome, and that if you are going this direction, you need to be going this direction all the way. In regards to the cathedral, you will want to equip theocracy. More than likely, it's going to help you out quite a bit. And you'll get the extra religious standing, which is fantastic. But this is one of those wonders that you're going to have to really invest fully in to get the most out of. But the end result is political stability more than efficiency. So while Colosseum does the same job but leans more on the side of efficiency, Cathedral is very focused on the political aspect more so, very concentrated. So St. Basil's Cathedral, political. We have reached the final era of wonders with the Cyber Operations Center. Here we have our last couple wonders that we can pick from. So we have our first wonder on the list. Man, they're giving me a hard time with these names. Neuschwanstein Castle, maybe? Man, they're giving me a hard time with these names. Neuschwanstein. I don't know. This is pretty much uncontested if you're doing tourism. I don't need to say anything about it. Tourist fees are increased, tourists stay longer. This is the MVP of tourism right here. So, Neuschwanstein Castle, if that's how you say it, is tourism, hands down. Next up, the Temple of Heaven. This is a really nice one. Economy, pure economy. There's so many things you can do with this. This one is pretty amazing. You can use this to benefit your pharmaceutical company, your hydroponics. It'll affect your juicery. This is the Stonehenge, essentially, of the modern age. It's really, really good, and to be honest, you're going to have to make a hard choice not to pick it. It'll make you so much money. I actually looked this up to see what the efficiency rating it is that it gives you, and I could not find the information on the wiki, and I could not find the information pretty much anywhere else, not even on Reddit. So I'm going to do you guys a real solid, and I'm going to boot up an old game and go look for that efficiency rating for you. So the bad news is all of the old games are corrupted, so I'm starting a new game here to test it out. Okay, that was a little bit of a hassle, but I did end up getting it. We have no upgrades here, just doing corn, running at 126% efficiency. I will drop the Temple of Heaven here. Let's speed that up, shall we?
Were you looking for somewhere to pray for good harvest?
And there's the answer. So it looks like it boosts everything by about 25%, and that's pretty good. Temple of Heaven, economy. You know what? We know where to put this. This goes in the trash tier. No, the Great Pyramid of Giza. We're gonna put that in efficiency, even though it's not really that efficient. What, you might have to build one less construction hub, maybe. It'll save you some space, but not much. It is what it is, so the Great Pyramid of Giza, efficiency. Next up on the list is the Winter Palace. This is useful if you have a military playstyle. You could also try and politicize it too, but I believe military is the best place to put this. Essentially, if your palace gets attacked and they kill El Presidente, that's it. It's game over. You lose. The Winter Palace gives you a second chance to overthrow your attackers. So you could find this useful through pretty much any playthrough. It's quite good. And last but not least, we have the White House. The activation and running costs being halved is quite nice. I'm going to put it in the gimmick subcategory as well, because while it is designed to be an economic wonder, it does have to compete with the Temple of Heaven. So it's really going to depend on what you're trying to do. You could even consider the Temple of Heaven a gimmick too. You have to decide how you want to be spending your money. And here's a way that I would use the White House, and that I do use the White House. The things that the White House does help with the activation costs is going to be things like the light bulb ban. That's not really going to save you that much money, so you'd be looking at the running costs, not the activation costs that would help you the most. Here's a running cost. You could consider the White House, you know, throwing a couple $100s in your pocket every month. If you were to use something like the Speedway, of course with no investment. Things like free wheels, that's going to put more than a few dollars in your pocket. Employee of the month, that's not going to save you a lot, but it's something. The two that I find the most interesting, that I have not tested myself yet, but I plan on doing in my next playthrough, so I'll probably leave a little comment in there of my results, is child allowances, which goes down to $1, and that costs $1 a month per child. So does that make it cost 50 cents, or is $1 just too low for the game to understand? The second one is Social Security. I'm not sure if you pay your citizens directly with Social Security, or if they get the money for free. Now, if you pay it yourself, and that's coming out of your pocket every month, that is when I would say the White House becomes very useful. Now, I'm going to have to do an entire playthrough to get that information, so that's going to take a while. But if that becomes true, I would say the White House is very good. If false, I just get the Temple of Heaven, to be honest. But you know, it depends on what gimmick you're going for. If you're doing all tourists, you might not need the Temple of Heaven at all. Maybe you would like to throw a couple $100s in your pocket every month. So we'll just disregard the information of Social Security until I get more information. But if you like an extra couple $100s a month, it will definitely do that for other things. So White House, economic. So now that we've gone through all of that, here is the list that I made here. And based on your playstyle, what I think you may find the most useful to help you along the way. Some of these are mandatory, like if you're going the tourism route. You pretty much can't ignore these. If you're going military, you pretty much can't ignore these. You know, you can mix in political where you need, you can mix in economic where you need efficiency. But these two in particular are quite specific. I hope that helped you guys, and if this gets a lot of attention, you know, Let me know what you want to see next. I can go into detail into each individual wonder, or I can find something new to go into entirely. Just give me some feedback, sub if you want to support me, and have a good one.